professionals and organizations achieve sustainable high performance without burnout. So, drawing from her own journey of overcoming burnout while earning her degree, so she developed the REST framework to build resilience, restore energy, and strengthen and self leadership. So that was a wonderful bio, Cat. So the stage all yours. All the best.
Thank you. Okay. Now, let me see about sharing my presentation here. Give me 1 second. Good to be here with all of you here this morning. Okay. So, now I would like to talk about the REST framework, something that I developed and to build resilience that performs. So let's get into it. Let me ask you guys a couple of questions. Do you ever show up on Monday still exhausted from last week? Or maybe not. Maybe you show up on Monday and you're totally amped, you're ready to go, you're full of energy, you're ready to take on the week. But then by Wednesday, you're completely exhausted again. You feel like you're burning the candle at both ends and you are wishing it was Friday. Do you ever wish that you could keep a consistent flow of energy throughout the entire week? Well, what if I told you you could actually be more productive by doing less? Sounds pretty good, right? Well, in this presentation, this is one of the things that we'll address and much, much more. So, first, let's discuss the problem. We were all taught the value of hard work. We've heard it our whole lives. You've got to work hard if you want to succeed. You have to work hard. You have to work hard to get what and where you want in this life. You have to be willing to roll up your sleeves and put your nose to the grindstone, as they say. But rarely, if ever, are we taught how to manage stress when it comes in, how to recover in order to perform effectively, and how to manage these things before burnout and overwhelm come into to play. Well, today, I hope to change all of that. But before we get into that, let me introduce myself. My name is Kat Cancoli. I was raised in poverty in Cleveland, Ohio. My father passed away when I was only 6 years old, and my mother, who was raised an orphan, now a widow, dealt with that stress and coped with the grief through drinking. And as a result of that, I had no positive role models, no real guidance, and very little support growing up. I had my first apartment when I was 14 years old, and I was on my own for most of my young adult life. I was a first generation college student, and I became a perfectionist overachiever determined to succeed. But even with all of that determination, it took me 6 years to finish my first 2 year degree, working a minimum of 3 jobs to support myself and keep a roof over my head in order to make it happen. I did graduate, though, and I even graduated magna cum laude. But that's when it hit me. I began to feel like the goal was so out of reach. I always wanted to help people. And so it was my dream to get a PhD in psychology. I wanted to be the first one in my family to call themselves doctor. But at this rate, it just felt like the goal was so out of reach. It felt like it was never going to happen for me. And that's when depression, anxiety, and self doubt began to creep in and they began to take over. I was exhausted. I was exhausted mentally, physically, and spiritually. I felt like my life was an uphill battle from the start, and I was beginning to slip downhill. Now, with no guidance, no safety net, my grades began to slip, and I felt I had no choice but to drop out, something I never wanted to do. I felt like I was a failure. But then I went into a construction zone of sorts. I was out of school for 6 years, but in that time, I worked hard to develop tools for resilience and tools to pick myself back up. I rebuilt myself from the ground up and the inside out. I was able to come back stronger because of that. I re enrolled into college and I finished my degree. I was able to consistently make the dean's list and the president's list because I was finally able to go to school full time. And this time, I graduated summa cum laude. I even got to study abroad. This is a picture of me in Campeche, Mexico, something I never thought I would ever get the chance to do, coming from where I came from. But with the tools that I built for resilience, I was able to do a lot of things I never thought I would be able to do. And so, in all of this, the REST framework was born. Practical tools for emotional regulation, energy capacity, self identity stability, and trained recovery. So let's dive into it. The first pillar in my REST framework is regulation. Because life is stressful. This much we all know. But learning tools for regulation can be the very thing that keeps you in the game when everything inside of you wants to quit. And so, some of the tools that I recommend for regulation are deep breathing exercises. Now, many of us know about this, but they're highly underutilized. And one of the first deep breathing exercises that I want to introduce to you all today is called box breathing. Now, in my workshops, we do this interactively and we can all practice these tools together. But for the sake of time today, I will just explain to you what box breathing is. Box breathing is just where you would inhale for a count of four, pause at the top of the breath for a count of four, exhale for a count of four, and then pause at the bottom of the breath for a count of four. And being able to regulate your breath in this way can help to regulate your system and assure yourself that you are not in any immediate danger and that you can calm down. Doing this for about 5 minutes tops really helps to regulate your system, get you um, out of a state of fight or flight, and can help to get you in a calmer state of mind. Now, I want to note that I took a class with a combat veteran who said that he and his fellow soldiers used combat or used box breathing while they were in combat in order to help them focus. And while I know that a lot of us have stressful lives, I can't think of anything that's more stressful than being in combat. And so, if it can work for them, then perhaps it can work for us. My next deep breathing exercise is taking 3 deep breaths and an I am affirmation. And so for this, I like to put my hand on my chest and I would take 3 deep breaths. And on the third breath, you would add an affirmation like, I am safe, I am strong, or I am a leader. You can use all three of these, or you can use one of them, or you can come up with something that resonates more deeply with what you need in that moment. But I have found with the combination of my hand on my chest, the deep breaths, and an I am affirmation on the third breath can help to really assure my system that we are not in any immediate danger and that we can calm down in that moment. And I have found this to be incredibly effective. These are things that you can do very quickly to bring your anxiety down before you go into a meeting, before you go into a difficult conversation. These are things that can be used at any time to very quickly bring down your nervous system. And I also want to include that this is backed by science. Deep breathing exercises, as I mentioned earlier, can help to get you out of a state of of fight or flight and into a state of rest or digest by suppressing the sympathetic nervous system and activating the parasympathetic nervous system. And so, my next tool is meditation. And I have heard a lot of excuses as to why people can't meditate, and I had a few of my own when I first started. But I assure you that carving out 5 to 10 minutes each day can help to keep you centered and regulated on a consistent basis. Now, I also want to include that on average, the average adult globally spends about an approximate 2 hours a day on social media. And so, if we have time for that, then we can certainly put 5 to 10 minutes aside to take deep breathing exercises or to meditate. Now, I look at this as hygiene for your mind. Just as you wouldn't skip a day of showering, you shouldn't skip a day of meditating. This allows you to remove the stresses of the day, to remove all the mental noise, and really cleanse your system, clear your mind, and refresh you at any moment. Another resource that I recommend for this is downloading the Insight Timer. Now, bear with me because if you're anything like me, anytime someone tells me to download an app, I am not for it. I already have too many apps on my phone and I don't need to download another app. But I assure you that if you're going to download any app to your phone, the Insight Timer is a great resource for having meditations for the morning, meditations for the evening. This says sleep meditations, meditations for everything in between. And it also has meditative music, things that you can use to help you focus throughout the day, as well as guided deep breathing exercises. The best part about this app is that it's completely free. There is a paid version you can use, but everything that you need can be found in the free version. And so, tools to add to your toolbox for regulation: box breathing, 3 deep breaths, and an I am affirmation, and then meditation. Download that Insight Timer, guys. And so the next pillar in my REST framework is the E for energy capacity, because knowing your energy limits and maintaining your energy levels can make sure that you are never running on empty. Now, part of this entails taking regular breaks. It's actually recommended to take a regular break, small break, every 90 minutes or so. And while I know that this doesn't sound feasible for a lot of us, bear with me because it goes into our next topic, which is avoiding busy work. It is so important for us to really be mindful of how we are expending our energy throughout the day. And so, while you take your short breaks throughout the day, this allows you to take a step back and evaluate what you're doing in the moment so that you can make sure that what you're doing is actually moving the needle towards your goals. Or you can ask yourself, is this just in fact busy work? Now, another part of maintaining your energy capacity is setting healthy boundaries. And with setting boundaries comes the ability to say no. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I myself, as a recovering people pleaser, the ability to say no was very uncomfortable for me. And it became a bit of a challenge. But I highly recommend this tool, saying no. And in fact, I want us to embrace the word no like a 2-year-old who's just learned the word. Any of us who have ever met a 2-year-old knows that they love this word and they have no qualms when of using it whenever they feel the need. And so I want us to be more like this 2-year-old. And the next time someone asks you to do something that you don't want to do, something that expels your energy and isn't replenishing it, something that doesn't move the needle towards your goals, I want you to shout, no, right in their face. I'm kidding. Don't do that. It doesn't always work. I've tried. But the point here is that saying no to people, places, and things that expend your energy aren't moving the needle forward. Not only is it necessary or acceptable to say no to these things, oftentimes it is, in fact, necessary. And so, tools for your toolbox as far as energy capacity is concerned: taking regular breaks, avoiding busy work, setting boundaries, getting comfortable with saying no. I assure you, once you get the hang of it, it can be very liberating. And so, the next pillar of my REST framework is the S for self identity stability, knowing that you are so much more than your achievements, your titles, and your productivity. Because identifying with your goals and your achievements is a dangerous game. And there's one big reason for this: because things change. You will never be in the same position, or you won't always be in the same position. So, identifying with your title can be a slippery slope if by chance you aren't always in that position. You won't always have the same things. So, if you identify with the person in the BMW, what are you going to do when life ebbs and flows as it does, and you might find yourself in the guy in the Honda Accord? So these things, you don't when these things change in life, which they inevitably will, you don't want to be questioning who you are inside. And with that being said, you won't always even have the same friend groups. And that's why it is so important to take time to explore your unique gifts and talents so that you can gain a firm foundation on what makes you you. Because let's face it, you will wear many hats in this life. You will win some and you will lose some. But if you have a firm grasp on what makes you you, a firm grasp on who you are, then no matter what life throws at you, you will never lose yourself. And that in this life is one of the most important things. And if you take nothing away from this presentation, I want you to take this away. And so, my final pillar in my REST framework is trained recovery. I want us to understand that rest is not something you've earned once all the work is done. Because again, let's face it, there is rarely a time when all of the work is done and that there's nothing left to do. How often are we actually able to say, all right, we're done? There's nothing left to do, right? Very rarely. And so I want us to understand that rest is not laziness. In fact, it's a part of a greater strategic plan to accomplish things in an effective and efficient way in order to be the best version of yourself every day. Even Olympic athletes understand that rest is necessary for peak performance. And so, if that's the case, why don't we embrace it in the same way? Go for gold in your life, right? And so, with energy capacity, we discussed managing our output of our energy. And this pillar is where we discuss recharging our batteries. Now, tools for this things that I highly recommend are nature walks. Going outside and being with nature is so good for your cognitive ability, it's good for your brain function, and it's impeccable for your mood. And unplugging. This is something that is super important. I want us to understand that we were not meant to always be connected to a device. And so it's so important to allow yourself time to unplug from the electronics every once in a while and just take a deep breath of fresh air. So, something that I do once a week is I will go on a hike. I wake up early on Saturday mornings and I go out and do maybe at least a 5 mile hike. And I put my phone on Do Not Disturb and just spend time with nature. And this is something that allows me to reset my battery, refuel my battery, and reset my system, a factory reboot, if you will. And so it allows you to clear your mind and be more effective to the tasks when you return to them. Another tool is power naps. Now, I know this might sound crazy. What are we in kindergarten? But I assure you, this can be very effective. If you work for long hours, let's say most of us get to take maybe an hour lunch break. I always recommend taking maybe 15 to 20 minutes of your lunch break to try to maybe take a power nap. And in doing this, it allows you to go into the second half of your day more refreshed, more re energized, and ready to take on the tasks with a clearer state of mind. Um, Another one is to schedule a rest day once a week. Even if you are an entrepreneur, I think it is so important to allow yourself 1 day a week to just not think about work and think about recharging your batteries, refuel, re energize. And in doing so, this is what can allow you to make sure that you are not bringing last week into next week and come in with a clean slate ready to take on the week at hand. And now, something that is very underrated is doing something creative. Each and every one of us has unique gifts and talents in creativity. And so, whether it be um, free writing, whether it be painting, drawing, maybe even coloring a coloring page, but whatever it is, you can work with your hands, whatever it is that you can use to find a creative outlet for creative energy and to let your mind not think about work for just a moment in time and focus on doing something more creative. Doing this allows you to release the thought of the problems that you're dealing with and allows you to go into a bit of a flow state so that solutions can come to you more easily. Now, what a lot of us don't understand is that so many of the great ideas that have shaped our world didn't come from putting your nose to the grindstone even farther, but it comes from a moment of being in rest and recuperation. And so, the same idea as why all of our good ideas seem to come to us in the shower, it's along the same lines as this. Allowing yourself to go into a bit of a flow state can remove your mind from the problem and allow the solution to come to you more easily. But going into these flow states and doing something creative can promote that state of mind, and it can actually be very productive. So, in closing, I want us to take away that you don't need to overdo it to prove that you belong, because each and every one of us already belongs. You don't have to say yes to everything. You don't need to be someone that you're not, and you don't need to push yourself past the point of exhaustion. Just take deep breaths and meditate in order to manage stress when it comes. Do less busy work so that you can be more effective in actually reaching your goals. Remember who you are in a world that tells you to conform. Take time to recharge your batteries so that you can show up as the best version of yourself every day. every single day. Because in a world that demands that you move faster, in a world of mass distraction, and in a world of uncertainty, I encourage you to push back on that a little bit. Do less so that you can be more. Take time to enjoy this life every once in a while. Take time to rest. And so, this is where I have time to answer any questions anyone has. And also, if you want to stay connected and have any questions that you'd like to ask or answer further, these are all of the ways that you can connect with me on social media, visit my website, any of the above. And so, looking at some of these questions here, how do you define resilience and why is it so critical in today's high pressure professional environment? Well, to answer your question, Kimberly, I feel like it is so important to have resilience and to practice these tools because if you look at the statistics, burnout is on a constant rise. People are disengaged, and honestly, I hate to be morbid, but suicide rates are also very high. And I feel like the more that we put this pressure on ourselves and we forget that we were not put on this planet solely to work and solely to perform. We were meant for something much greater than that. And so these tools help us to gain the resilience to know that we are so much more than just our work and that we can take on these tasks, the adversity when it comes, and know that even if we don't win all the time, we still have a greater purpose in this world. So I hope that answers that question as best as I can. And this question here, go ahead. Um, Self identity is a unique part of your framework. Why is separating self worth from performance essential for long term resilience? Well, in this one, the reason I put that in the framework is because I was someone who identified with my performance, especially in school. As a college student, I had to be straight A student. I had to have all of the achievements and all of the accolades. But I realized that if I wasn't doing well in school, I equated that with not doing well in life. And so it really messed with my self worth and it led me to a road of deep depression. And so that's why it's so important for us to understand that whether you win or lose in these achievements, you are still yourself. And again, you still have a greater purpose on this planet than getting these achievements. I think we might have time for a couple more. Recovery is often viewed as taking time off. How does intentional recovery differ, and why is it essential for sustained high performance? Well, like I mentioned, allowing yourself to rest is the very thing that can help you come back to your tasks more attentive. It gives you the ability to really attend to the things that you need to attend to and you can be better at all of the things, all of the tasks at hand because you're approaching it with better energy, a clearer mind, and you can really give those things the attention they deserve in that moment as opposed to being all over the place and having your mind go in a million different directions. So what do you think, John? Do I have questions for can I answer any more questions?
Yeah, dear. So there is one more question. So from Dr. Dan. So if there is one key message would you like to every attendee to remember from your presentation today? So what would it be?
That's a very good question, Dr. Dan. The way I would answer that is if you take nothing away from this presentation, I want us to realize that we are so much more than our productivity, that we are meant to be on this planet for a greater purpose than just producing. Okay. So always remember who you are. And if you still have to search who that is, just take time to embrace new things, explore things that you can make a part of yourself, and know that you are so much more than all of your achievements, your titles, and the accolades that you get in this life.
Yeah. So that was a wonderful presentation, Kat.
Thank you
So
so much. Thank you for having me. This was wonderful.
yeah, thanks for your presence. So ladies and gentlemen, so please connect with her. So she have shared her Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook IDs. So please go and connect with her. And if you have any queries, you please reach out with her. And so we do have some couple of questions. So we will be sharing directly to your email. So you please answer them there. Okay.
Thank you
So
so much.
thanks. Yeah, thanks for your presence and thanks for your valuable words. So a lot of people had inspired from your words. And please be in the backstage and please join our next sessions.
Sounds good. Thank you guys. Have a great
Thank you.
day.
Bye
Thank
bye.
you.